Thank you, Senator and Mr. Kennedy, for the honor to present here. I'm trained in gastrointestinal surgery. My group at Johns Hopkins does more pancreatic cancer surgery than any hospital in the United States. But at no point in the last 20 years has anyone stopped to ask, why has pancreatic cancer doubled over those 20 years? Who's working on that? Who's looking into it? We are so busy in our healthcare system, billing and coding and paying each other, and every stakeholder has their gigantic lobby in Washington, D.C., and everybody's making a lot of money, except for one stakeholder, the American citizen. They are financing this giant, expensive healthcare system through their paycheck deduction for health insurance and the Medicare excise tax. As we go down this path of billing and coding and medicating, and can we be real for a second? We have poisoned our food supply, engineered highly addictive chemicals that we put into our food. We spray it with pesticides that kill pests. What do you think they do to our gut lining and our microbiome? And then they come in sick. The GI tract is reacting. It's not an acute inflammatory storm. It's a low-grade chronic inflammation. And it makes people feel sick. And that inflammation permeates and drives so many of our chronic diseases that we didn't see half a century ago. Who's working on, who's looking into this? Who's talking about it? Our healthcare system is playing whack-a-mole on the back end, and we are not talking about the root causes of our chronic disease epidemic. We can't see the forest from the trees sometimes. We're so busy in these short visits, billing and coding. We've done a terrible thing to doctors. We've told them, put your head down, focus on billing and coding. We're gonna measure you by your throughput, and good job, you did a nice job. We have all these numbers to show for it. Well, the country is getting sicker. We cannot keep going down this path. We have the most over-medicated, sickest population in the world, and no one is talking about the root causes. The Pima Indians are the perfect example. Here's a group where the obesity, diabetes rate was less than 1%. The land in New Mexico and Arizona had its river supply diverted by ranchers and settlers, and the land and the soil was destroyed. The government, recognizing this tremendous injustice, started to send free government food, but it wasn't organic kale and fruits and vegetables. It was processed and junk food. Instantly, the Pima Indians developed an obesity, diabetes rate of 90%. And what did the United States government do? What did our healthcare system do? The NIH dispatches its researchers to draw the blood of the Pima Indians to look for a gene that predisposes them to obesity and diabetes. What are our leaders doing? The H in NIH is supposed to stand for health. Were they spending their money on food as medicine and looking at the estrogen binding properties of pesticides that are driving our fertility rates down? They're funding research in Wuhan, China, and they're funding research on a new food compass to replace the misinformation they put out with the food pyramid, telling us Lucky Charms is healthier than steak. Somebody has got to speak up. Maybe we need to talk about school lunch programs, not just putting every kid on obesity drugs like Ozempic. Maybe we need to talk about treating diabetes with cooking classes, not just throwing insulin at everybody. Maybe we need to talk about environmental exposures that cause cancer, not just the chemo to treat it. We've got to talk about food as medicine and research these areas. 20% of our nation's kids are on medication. And as you heard, half are obese or overweight. Are they more disobedient than children in Japan? Or have we poisoned the food supply? Is this a chronic disease epidemic that has been a direct result of what adults have done to children? We like to blame people for their diseases, but maybe we need to look inward. We see all these shiny objects thrown at us. Politicians talk about, oh, we've got a new healthcare proposal. Medicare can now negotiate the prices of 10 generic drugs. Don't be fooled. These are things in the periphery. It's not to say they don't have merits. But the proposed program savings in year one, by their own description, is $6 billion. In a $4.5 trillion economy that's expanding at 8% per year in the commercial sector, that's a $200 billion expansion. We save $6 billion. The best way to lower drug costs in the United States are to stop taking drugs we don't need.
It's all about the food, folks. It's all about the food. Let's get into it.
Doesn't anyone notice this? I feel like I'm taking crazy pills!
I don't want you to ride. I don't want you to write to your congressman because I wouldn't know what to tell you to write. I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation and the Russians and the crime in the street. All I know is that first, you've got to get mad.
Is the whole world gone crazy? Am I the only one around here who gives a shit about the rules?
You have the luxury of not knowing what I know.
I want you to get up now. I want all of you to get up out of your chairs. I want you to get up right now and go to the window, open it, and stick your head out and yell, I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not gonna take this anymore!
All right, everyone. Welcome another Thursday. I appreciate all of you. I want to announce thank you very much to all the Facebookers and Rumble folks and vice versa who helped me out, and all the new people who just saw me on X and got me to that goal of 1,000. Obviously, the next goal is 2,000, but we have gotten that goal. It took me about 4 or 5 months to do, but I'm there. So I just want to say anybody on X right now who's watching, anybody on Facebook, Rumble, etc., or YouTube that are watching this and were one of the people who jumped on to help me try to make this migration to X. I'll still stream on the other platforms, but I want to make X the primary. I want that 18,000 number from Facebook on X, right? And grow from there, because I see that as being, I'm just tired of dealing with the larger platforms that just play with me all the time, and I just can't take it. So I want to say thank you for that. So just a quick reminder, or let's just get into the topics. Screw the reminders. There's t-shirts in the t-shirt store, the ones I wear. All right, so today I want to go over food, right? So I've been reading a book by Casey Means called Good Energy. And let me give you an idea what the book looks like, because it's kind of cool. And I'm going through this book, and just as I'm going through it, I don't know if it's because the algorithm sees me reading into this stuff or what's going on, but suddenly all these videos are popping off. And I'm seeing all these nutritionists and health professionals who are breaking out of the mold and stepping out forward and demanding that the healthcare community start paying attention to people's actual health and not just treatments, right? And I would recommend this book, by the way, to anyone. I'm not endorsed by it. You guys know I don't get paid for this stuff. Maybe one day on X I'll get paid for this stuff. But as soon as I monetized on Facebook, they just started shadow banning everything. And that was that. So it's not for the money. It's for your good health. And she goes in and explains a lot about basically the cellular level. And how nutrition, how all of these different itises, right? So if you don't know, itis means inflammation. So she lists off like 40. She lists them off in the book to the point where you're like, oh my God, please, enough already. And you start laughing. But there's she lists off that many, and she's like, they're all caused by bad nutrition, all of them, and ultra processed foods. And so while we sit here, and it makes sense, right? It's the first time of all the questions I ask about nutrition, like why are we suddenly, when we have more technology than ever, why is everyone sicker than ever? Why is type 2 diabetes now a completely normal thing? Why is autism a completely normal thing? Why do so many kids have peanut allergies? Why, a kid can't, every kid in my class in grammar school, up had peanut butter and jelly. Now it's like banned from schools because you may kill somebody. Like, why are these things happening? And she breaks it down very well as to why. And not only that, but like, you also ask yourself, like, really, can all of these health professionals just be that coarse and that, and truly not give a crap? And she explains why. She explains why they all get in lockstep. Like, they're trained this way. This is what the subversion of our medical schools, the same way that our law schools, our civics was taken out. Now grammar schools and up are all subverted, all of them. And the university and higher level stuff has been subverted for 60 years. So they're trained to do certain things. They're trained to look at things from a treatment perspective and not ask the questions of, what's causing this. Like, many of them believe we don't know what's causing these things. Many of them don't even know that nutrition is the cause of these things. But she breaks it down in a way where you walk away understanding it, and it's kind of cool. And I also want to I'm going to get into this in a little bit, what it means to have a Trump victory, right? And what that, is it really going to be like the first time, right? I get more and more people who think, well, the economy's bad now, just hang in there till November, just hang in there till January. It's all going to change. It's all going to change. And I just want to remind people some stuff that is probably going to be bad. And I'm going to get into it as to why. And it ain't going to be Trump's fault. But I want to get into it because things, from our perspective, it's not going to be peaches and cream. That's for sure. So I want to go over that. And Lisa Moriello over on Facebook, The Real Point is called a homestead, and it needs to happen now. Mine will be ready in 6 months. No more excuses, no more time left. Yeah, I just get back, Lisa, from West Virginia. My brother and I bought a property there. We just added solar to this hunting cabin that's on the property. It's not enough to support my whole family and his family, but it is, in worse times, a shelter and 90 acres of huntable land that is technically zoned as farmland. So there are some things that I can relate to there. And we were hoping to get things done. We still might have time, but we might be a year or so out from what's likely to come. Hopefully nothing comes, right? But I think we all, if we're being honest with ourselves, know, like, Deep State doesn't just pack up, take their ball and go home, right? They're not just like, oh, well, we fought a good fight, but, it's over. We'll try harder next time. Like, that's not going to be the case, right? So I appreciate the comment. 80% of disease is caused by your food. Yeah, so here we go. Your mom will tell you I've been a holistic nutritional advisor for 17 years. I scream this stuff from the rooftop. George doctors only get 23 hours of nutritional study in medical school. Yeah, and that's kind of the point, right? And that's what's in this book, right, is that she kind of breaks down, that the doctors just aren't taught this. And I want to point out, because I've been saying for so long, that our schools have been subverted for such a long time now that they're not even recognizable. They're not even recognizable at this point. They're the stuff that gets taught in there, like, a lot of people turn around and they're like, what happened? How did the world just go crazy like this? We don't know what bathroom to use and this and that. Like, this has all been slowly adding up and happening for 60, 70 years. All right. And initially, yes, it was initiated by the Soviet Union, but the CCP has been sitting in the wings the entire time. And when the Soviets fell, they knew exactly what to do, and they stepped in and took it over. And what you're seeing now is the final product that they created in a subversion that was designed to turn the entire country upside down internally. To get people to a place where they don't trust anyone and no one knows what to think. That's what the goal was. And I think we can all agree that they've been successful in that goal, right? I think it's clear now, that battle has been lost. They've subverted all the schools. The media is fully subverted. Hollywood is fully subverted. Like, all of the major... Now, they didn't get the end goal that they wanted, though, right? Like what they wanted and what they would have got, and they did get in places like Venezuela and Cuba and Vietnam, etc. What they did get in those places was full subversion. Like enough people marching in the streets and creating the chaos and demanding these changes, and they didn't get that here. They got people to do it, but it's isolated to large cities. It's there's too many people in this nation that are just not buying it, that just have it in their DNA to demand freedom. And so, in the end, that Stephen, how are you, sir? He says, I know. Yeah, I know. I'm not sure if that's about the food or the Trump situation, but, either way, my man, prepare yourself, bro, because it is the waters are going to get rocky. But with respect to this, this part about the healthcare and the food, etc. I've been watching tons and tons of clips of this stuff, and what I got to, was the one that I picked one, right? Because I'm not going to sit here and show you clips of every single one out there. But what I will do is drop a couple of names for you on that front, just so, and Casey Means was one of them, okay? And then, Jillian Michaels. So if you haven't heard of Jillian Michaels, she's another one, a fitness expert, nutrition expert, who has been at the podium screaming this stuff and really breaking down, for the uneducated politician, right? And that's really what it is. Because I think most people, when it comes to food, are uneducated. And we hear, you look for a nutritionist, but you hear mixed messages from everyone, and none of those diets make sense, right? None of them make sense. And what's interesting is in that Good Energy book, for those of you who've been following me, I'm a huge law of attraction guy. I do believe God's universe is design, and I've been using law of attraction within that design for some time now. And she actually mentions that there are studies that show people who keep a gratitude journal and are constantly writing down what they're grateful for actually show better health numbers, both in blood work and other items than those who don't, which I found incredibly interesting. But definitely read that book. This is Jillian Michaels here. She's got a great video on Twitter. I don't know if I shared it or not. If I didn't message me, I bookmarked it, so I'll share it and make sure more people get to see it. But I want to get into Marty, because he gives an example which I found fascinating. And let me cue this up here. All right. So Marty, where are you, sir? Here he is. Why is he not coming up?
We have the most over-medicated, sickest population in the world.
Here we
We have
go.
the
From
most
the beginning.
over-medicated, sickest population in the world. And no one is talking about the root causes. The Pima Indians are the perfect example. Here's a group where the obesity, diabetes rate was less than 1%. The land in New Mexico and Arizona had its river supply diverted by ranchers and settlers, and the land and the soil was destroyed. The government, recognizing this tremendous injustice, started to send free government food, but it wasn't organic kale and fruits and vegetables. It was processed and junk food. Instantly, the Pima Indians developed an obesity, diabetes rate of 90%. And what did the United States government do? What did our healthcare system do? The NIH dispatches its researchers to draw the blood of the Pima Indians to look for a gene that predisposes them to obesity and diabetes. What are our leaders doing? The H in NIH is supposed to stand for health. Were they spending their money on food as medicine and looking at the estrogen-binding properties of pesticides that are driving our fertility rates down? They're funding research in Wuhan, China, and they're funding research on a new food compass to replace the misinformation they put out with the food pyramid, telling us Lucky Charms is healthier than steak.
Now, I thought that example.
And like that,
Going crazy. I'm not leaving.
he's gone.
I have so many things open here. I don't know where they are to shut them off. So there's that. All right. So that's what happens when you're your own producer, right? There's no one to yell at. I gotta just like look back in the screen and yell at myself. But you hear what the doc is saying, right? He's giving this example of the Pima Indians, and he's like, you know, ranchers diverted their rivers and stuff, not realizing it was going to destroy, you know, it was going to hurt their land and their soil. So they went ahead and realized, wow, okay, we got a problem here, but the rivers have already been diverted. So instead, and they start giving them, you know, Lunchables, basically, right? Probably cans of Spam and whatever else. And all of a sudden, there's an obesity problem. It's like you can you can clearly, I understand that correlation is not causation. I understand that. But when you see a correlation like that, your first response should be, is it, because it's obvious, is this the processed food that we sent? Like they never had this problem. But instead, they use our money to put testing to test their DNA and see if they're predisposed to obesity. Well, if they weren't obese before, and the only thing that changed was the fact that they're eating ultra processed foods, then and now they're eating that and they're all obese, so there's an obesity epidemic. Clearly, the first place you should be looking is the ultra processed food. And, you know, for a while I thought to myself, maybe there's just no one really knows, right? But I'm like, that just doesn't make sense, not in today's world. And it turns out there are thousands of people, thousands and thousands and thousands of people who know. And when they scream it out loud, it doesn't go anywhere, right? Just like Lisa was saying a moment ago. I'm sure she's been trying to educate everyone on this, and nobody's hearing it, right? But like there are people out there speaking, and thanks to, you know, I think this is in large part to RFK. It's starting to get the national eye, right? It's starting to get the attention of people that it should get the attention of, which is us, and have us asking these questions. And the fact is, you know, whether or not the question really comes into, do they even care, right? Because both in that book I was reading and in what all these others are saying is that they keep talking about coding. It's Scott, how are you, sir? Over on Facebook, it's always follow the money. Yeah, it is, except with the CCP, they're just power. But yeah, it is pretty much always follow the money. And it's no different here, right? Because in the end, what we're looking at is like, the big food corporations are all owned by tobacco corporations, which when tobacco became, you know, when people finally started admitting that tobacco's bad, and I ain't gonna lie, I've been known to have a cigarette from time to time, and I sure as heck love cigars. But I'm fully aware of the danger and how bad it is and things like that. Years ago, you know, they were putting out commercials like, you know, no problem, right? Like, no problem. They're fine, right? And the FDA ignoring it, right? And right now, there are so many examples of the FDA, even the private organizations, like they brought up in the book, like the American Heart Association, like endorsed Cheerios. Like, and people thought forever that Cheerios were healthy because they gave us a food pyramid that was completely upside down. And forever we're telling ourselves red meat is bad, but that's absolutely not the case. And yet we have these people out there, you know, notably Jordan Peterson's daughter and Jordan Peterson himself went to this all meat diet where it's just like meat and some salt every meal. You know, I could never, as much as I love barbecue and steak. But they went to those diets and felt immeasurably better. Their blood work was awesome. There are tons of videos of people out there who did it and showed great results. But instead of saying, wow, why are they showing great results? I thought red meat was really bad. Instead of doing that, it's like, Nah, that's just fake. That can't be real. Like, it's like, what in the world? What in the world? And it also explains why not the entire, but I mean, every doctor I saw, and I got crappy coverage. I got like HMO, they call it Kaiser out here in California, and it's just garbage healthcare. But like, the fact of the matter is, everyone was saying take it, to the point where they're putting pressure, right? Everyone. And it's like, how could they all be that dumb? Like, how could they all have gone to medical school and gone through all of this training and still be that stupid? And I'll say it, like, if you're a doctor that was out there, like, encouraging people to take that jab, you're insane. And you absolutely violated your oath. And that covers a lot of people, because you didn't need a medical degree to know how potentially dangerous that thing was and how not dangerous COVID was, which is just wild to me. But then he gives this example, and that, of all the things that I was watching, because it does get repetitive when you watch a lot of it, right? It does get repetitive, and like, so, but I kept watching for a gem like that, right? Like an example, because I love it when those types of examples jump out, because they're undeniable. And the psychosis of the healthcare system and the NIH to go ahead and friggin' respond to that. It's like being, you heard the adage, if you're in a house that's filling up with sewage and it's about to get to the ceiling, right? Well, what do? You raise the ceiling, right? It's like, what in the world? What in the world? Barbara Norman, how are you? Mainstream media on Facebook. Mainstream media blocks the truth. Many are so brainwashed now it's hard to convince them otherwise. Yeah, that's true. That's true. And I'll tell you, it's not just the new generations, by the way. Because Gen X and even boomers have a really hard time accepting the fact that this goes all the way back to the freaking 50s, to the early 50s. That this type of subordination has been going on for most of a boomer's adult life. And all of Gen X's adult life. Well, all of the boomers too, though. Like, this has slowly been happening under our watch, and we never paid attention. And people want to act, look, I was a big heavy metal. I was into everything when I was a kid, but one of the things I was into was heavy metal. But I look back now, you look at that glam rock, right? They had these men wearing lipstick and these are people that didn't do this when they were street bands and before they got discovered. But once they got discovered and started making albums, the lipstick goes on some of them, blush, and like, and it was bizarre. And the content was what? It was all about the devil, right? This has been going on for a very long time, right? The hippie generation, which are boomers, all anti-America, right? The big movements in the boomer days was anti-America, right? Hippies were America's the problem, right? Yuri Bezmenov laughs and says, "Comrade on drop off, never thought he could create such a generation. He never thought it would be that successful." We've all been a part of this. And so there's shame for everyone, but enough with the shame. Like, because now it's not like we did it intentionally. At Gen X, we raised our kids with the tablets, right? We stick in the tablets, and what you mean, if I put this thing in front of him, he'll shut up all through dinner? Perfect. Put on some educational programming, right? Which we're not even watching, we're not even paying attention to, right? But it wasn't intentional. It was something that was being done to us, and we didn't realize it, and now we do. So now it's time for everybody, from Gen Z all the way up the chain to boomers, right? To rear back and take it all back. And undo this madness, because you first have to accept the fact that it's real, that it happened. You first have to do that in order for you to be able to even wrap your head, right? And that's what I mean with the shirt, right? It's like you have to be able to see first, because once you accept the fact that this has been going on for so long, now you can open your eyes, and you can't close them again, because now you understand. And now you know. All right, this is a big one, so it's knocking me off the screen. But thank you for the comment, Lisa, over on Facebook. My holistic community has been fighting Capitol Hill about having insurance companies cover the cost of holistic nutritional advisor, like myself, because believe it or not, nutritionists and dietitians are freaking useless because they're all indoctrinated by the four-year colleges. Yeah, and that kind of is back to that point, right? It's like, and they're not all useless, right? Like some of them, see it, right? Some of them see. Like some of them along the way, right? Like this Dr. Casey Means, who wrote that book. Like she tells her story. She was number one. She was top of her class in Stanford Medical School. Was finishing her residency and everything. And she was a specialist in neck surgery and something else, neck and head in general, I think. But she performed tons of surgeries, and she's like, she realized, right? So she was educated in that 4-year education. But she stepped back and was like, wait a minute, we're not healing anyone. How is it possible that all these people have inflammation? Like all these people have inflammation of something. And so she walked away and started her own practice with a focus on nutritional cellular regeneration and like what's happening to our cells. She went and did her own research. She's perfectly qualified to do so and educated herself. And this is something that a lot of nutritionists can do as well. The problem with nutritionists, and even for doctors at this point, is that you don't know if they're, like, even though they're legit, you got to validate them. You have to validate them. So, but thank you for the comments. Lady Mern over on Rumble. How are we doing? Mern is one of our district I don't run the organization, but she's a district captain over in Jersey for Convention Estates, which is the flagship topic for this channel. And I will be putting out, so by the way, I haven't mentioned this in a while. If you happen to come on because you had questions about Article 5 or you had, your friends are telling you, they're going to steal the Constitution or some madness like that, and you bring them on and you want to ask questions so that they can get answers live and stuff like that, just go ahead and do it. If the topic's different, I don't care. I don't get paid to do this, and that is my main focus. But, every single week doing the same video explaining Article 5 can get a little mundane. So, I just do it from time to time and tie it in with the topics at hand. So, but if you ever have a question on Article 5, I stop everything and give you answers. And right now, some of you, especially the new folks at Twitter, might be like, well, what is this Article 5 and what is the magic therein? Feel free. I'll break it down anytime. I have no issues. But I do have videos. I don't know if I posted them all to Twitter yet because the migration was fairly new. But I do have videos on the ScrewTube channel, right? And Facebook and my history that get into it. You could also get great explainer videos at Convention Estates Project on both Rumble. And I have those videos on Rumble as well. But you can also get it from Convention Estates Project. They have some great videos there as well. So good holistic healers over on Rumble. Good holistic healers are hard to find. You need a good one to get better. I love acupuncture. It really helps. Yeah, I wouldn't be down on Eastern medicine, right? I mean, Eastern medicine is pretty tight, right? There's no reason. I mean, look at it. Western medicine is all pharmaceuticals, right? Let's face it. We don't even really have Western medicine. It's just pharmaceuticals. Like doctors today are drug dealers. Psychiatrists in particular, they don't even care what you're going through. They just want only long enough for them to diagnose you with something that they can give you a drug for. Like they literally are just drug dealers. If you go to a doctor, and God bless you if you have a truly good doctor, but I think most people have at least been to one once where you just walk in, you tell them what's wrong, they prescribe you something, they walk out of the room, and that's it, it's done. And that's the end. All right, let me see what we got here. All right. So it's 6 o'clock. I'm going to go ahead and kind of pivot, but there's one more comment here from Facebook. All right, so speaking of food, my dog was severely ill from the dog food. I started cooking for her human organic food, and she's thriving. Hubby says I cook better meals for her than him. Yeah, there's a lot to that too. I got a buddy who feeds his dog raw meats, like just gives his dog raw meats. Chicken too. Like he don't even, I was like, chicken? He ain't gonna get me. He's like, nope, chicken too, doesn't matter. And I've done that. I've posed because my dog's been pampered, so he kind of eats almost at the dinner table with us, right? So he's 12 years old now and still jumping to the top of the wall. So, you know, he couldn't have been bad. But it's mostly meats, right? It's mostly meats. They're cooked though, and but like if I grill steaks, we slice them because when I grill them thick, and we slice them and just serve it out to the table sliced. So I'll give him a portion of that to eat. If we're eating chicken, I give him a portion of that to eat. He loves cheese, so I give him. He eats a lot of mozzarella. So, but we've been feeding him table food forever. He only eats dog food when we've had a couple of meals in a row that aren't really conducive to him, like pasta or something like that. But he's fine and thriving, so I can believe that. And my buddy's dog that feeds it all raw meat. That dog is thriving as well. So, look, I think it's clear, right? It's clear that it's not even that the medical community has betrayed us. It's that we just now know, and like she says in the book, like, don't trust your doctor, trust you. Like, take advice from your doctor, but validate, trust, but verify, right? Like, don't just let them tell you you need this, you need that when it comes to drugs, right? Because it's just that's not the way to do it. You're going to end up, especially if you're elderly, they'll they'll prescribe something to you, and if it's making you sicker and messed up, they won't change it. Like, you have to tell them, I'm not taking this anymore. Like, and the bottom line is, you don't have to be a medical professional to know, you told me to take this pill, I'm taking this pill, and now I feel like crap. Now I'm super tired. Now I don't get anything done. Now these side effects, the side effects are often worse than whatever the hell it is that is trying to fix. And in most cases, it's not even necessary. But what they do is just all they know. And so that's what it is. All right, I want to talk about this Trump piece. So a lot of people come to me, well, not come to me, but they reach out to me via one of the platforms, be it Rumble or Facebook is where a lot of it comes from. Twitter, a lot comes from. Now more is coming from Twitter as the following grows, as the migration kind of continues. But the point is, one way or the other, people reach out to me, and they seem to have the idea that getting Donald Trump in the White House is like the finish line. Like that's, we do that and we've won. And it's like, no. And I'm trying to get these people straight on a few things, right? Now, one, when Donald Trump wins the presidency, and he does have to win, this is not me saying, it doesn't matter who wins. No, it matters. It matters heavily. But it ain't like, it ain't like he wins and I can see clearly now the rain. It's like that. It ain't like that. Because the deep state ain't the type of folks that just go home. They're not going to just walk away. They've made 2, possibly 3 attempts on his life already. And the fact of the matter is, they're going to make more. Like, you've probably heard about these 5 hit squads or whatever, 5 hit teams that are in the United States currently. Matt Gaetz brought it up. Alex Jones was the first one to say it. But there's these 5 hit teams, and they're all going after him for a payday. And, 3 of those teams they keep saying are linked to Iran. If they're linked to Iran, they're linked to the CCP. Okay, so and the bottom line is, whether it's foreign or domestic, and the other 2 are domestic, right? Those are the CIA teams, probably, right? I would think, right? Those would be the assets, if you will, right? But and unless you're still living in that world where you think that it's not, that this was not our government trying to assassinate this man. If you're living in that world, and I'll be clear for Facebook, that's my opinion. And I don't have hard evidence to say that Deep State went after this man twice, maybe 3 times. But I can say my opinion, which means, yeah, they absolutely did. So, but they went after him 3 times. Like, well, they got nothing to lose right now, right? Think about yourself in the situation of the deep state folks that are going to fall if this all goes down. Put yourself in their shoes, all right? If he gets into office, it does any decent human being that he puts in charge of the CIA, because the people he puts in charge of the alphabet soup, right? CIA, DARPA, NSA, whoever he puts in charge of it all, that person is going to uncover all kinds of crazy crap. Like, there's going to be all kinds of dirt that's going to put all kinds of people in prison. There will be whistleblowers flying out of the friggin', like, if these folks have a president that backs them, right? You'll see FBI agents, NSA agents, you'll see agents from absolutely everywhere. Once they believe that there's someone in office and a team in office that's willing to seriously take action. So they're going to either hang for treason or spend the rest of their life in prison. So when they look at the prospect of trying to assassinate a former and future president of the United States, it makes perfect sense for them to go all in. It makes perfect sense. Because like they didn't have to do that with Reagan, right? Because Reagan was not as all in as Trump is. Like, Reagan still, for the fact that he defied them and clearly, was about to do some stuff to deep state, I don't even know that Reagan understood that was coming from them. I don't know. Because he was a believer that type of stuff, that we don't have people like that in our government. God bless his soul for that, naivete. But, I don't think he understood. Or not that he understood. I don't think when he understood that he would believe it is more fair. And, but with Trump, damn well, like, the team Trump brings in there is going to be no holds barred. They're going to be digging through everything. We're getting the Kennedy files. Like, we're getting it all, folks. We're going to see what the hell's going on with this Area 51 madness. We're going to see it. Like, it's all coming. It's all coming. And like, their days, the entire organization, the deep state, because the reality of the matter is the president is in charge. While he's in office, he is, for all intents and purposes, as far as those agencies are concerned, he's the king. Right? He's not the king of the American people, but as far as those agencies are concerned, he's it. Like, if a president tells one of these deep state dudes, like, they don't have the authority to tell the president of the United States, this is classified beyond you. Nothing is classified to the president of the United States unless the president of the United States allows it to be so. And so it's all coming out. But what they're going to do in particular, and I'll tell you right now what I've been saying for the last 2 years, and I said this maybe a year and a half ago when I was talking, or maybe a year ago, where I was talking about China and that third quarter grab they were doing for gold, where their central bank, there was this mystery buyer that was buying up all this gold and nobody knew exactly who it was. And China came out, and said that it was them, but that they weren't buying as much as it looked like. I don't even know how they were trying to do that. But they've been buying gold to BRICS countries heavily for the past 4 to 5 years. And there's only one reason to do that, all right? Is that if it all goes bad and it looks like the United States is going to get back on its feet and start kicking some ass again, sell off the currency. And sell off everything you have in that currency. And it'll hurt China. It will. But China's already hurt. So like China's economy, don't believe the hype. Their economy's a hot freaking mess. That nation is in absolute economic duress. They can't even feed their own people. There were droughts recently and floods in other areas. And their farming was destroyed. Their agriculture was destroyed. Their real estate markets are in a hot mess. Things can't be centrally controlled effectively. They're learning that. They should have known it already. But the fact of the matter is, they're going to sell it off for the simple reason to take down the United States. And it will crash the U.S. dollar. Don't get it twisted. It will crash the U.S. dollar. And when that happens, it's very possible. I mean, there's a lot of different things that can happen. But at least temporarily, your paper money is going to be worthless. So for those who are like, I don't trust these banks, I'm going to hide it under my mattress, you'll have some firewood, right? Because that's the way it's going down, and in my opinion. So like, I'm not giving financial advice here. I'm not telling people buy this, buy that myself. You know, I already put some money in property. I'm putting, me and my brother purchased a property, some raw land with a hunting cabin, and we're kind of decking it out with, ham radios and solar power and whatever. But but I'm also, I'm also looking to buy some gold, which I never, I know I've said on here that, you can't buy bread with gold, right? But like in the end, I don't think it's going to be a permanent situation. It's going to be, it's going to be a recoup situation. Trump's presidency, in my opinion, is going to be harder than he thinks. It's going to be a lot of figuring out, whether we need a new currency, whether we can salvage the old, how to do that, and then finding people to trust to help with that process. And in the meantime, there's going to be a lot of pain. And people, and you know what? It's necessary pain, though, because at the end of it, like, these are things the United States can come out of, right? Like we say we buy everything from China, but we don't have to. Like in the end, just like in World War II, like when it really hits the fan, like we can quickly become a manufacturing nation. We can quickly do that. And if we do, right? I mean, when I say quickly, I mean, look how quickly we turned into, manufacturing ventilators, right? Like there are ways to do this. And when the American public is suffering, and we all know why, and we all get it, people get on board. They get on board. I mean, you just turn around, look. No taxes for anybody who manufactures effective and quality semiconductors, right? Take that right out of Taiwan, who manufactures like 90% of them today, right? Just take that right off the plate, because the Western nations are not going to be buying semiconductors from Taiwan, and because the CCP is going to be crushing them too. So the fact of the matter is, you take away the manufacturing that they currently have hold of, which is slowly leaving on its own, by the way, anyway. But in a state of emergency, you erase the minimum wage, people ain't going to have any jobs. So they're going to take, we got to do what we got to do. And you let them go at it. You let them have at it. Just as long as it's manufacturing vital goods, have at it. We need one end result. We need you to manufacture vital goods. Right? And get them up and running. It doesn't have to be permanent, but it needs to be up and running, so that, because the immediate sense, we won't be able to get anything because it all comes from China, right? So in the end, those type of measures can be taken quickly, and we can get out of it. But don't think for a second, all right, that it's going to, and maybe there's a different path. Maybe they're going to try something different. So I'll leave the door open to that. My thought process has always been, it's going to be the dollar. They're going to go after the dollar because it's the most vulnerable. And it explains why the left has been blowing money, and the rhinos on the right have been blowing money the way they have been in the name of Ukraine, in the name of this and that. They're just pissing away money. And at the same time, say, why would they do that? It just makes us even more vulnerable. So let me get to some of the comments here. Lady Myrn over on Rumble. Happy Constitution Month. Yesterday was Bill of Rights Day. Article 5 Day was 9/15. What an exciting month to educate people on their rights. Yeah, at the end of this, I'll give a quick explanation of Article 5 as well. And the end is coming soon, so I will definitely do that. Thanks for bringing that up. Happy Constitution Month. And Elisa over on Facebook. It'll be hard for him, and it will take a lot of time to correct this mess. I just hope 4 years is enough time. 4 years is probably not enough time, right? So we need that person on deck, right? Whether it's DeSantis, Vance is going to still have to show me stuff, for me to be okay with him picking up the reins at that point. I get he's got a great story and all those things, but, right now, the doer and the go-getter who's getting stuff done is DeSantis. But we're going to need somebody like that on deck, ready to go, and ready to just pick up the ball and run, once it happens, because we will see improvements, right? But it's not going to be like, no one's going to want to go back to where we were, right? And so I think a lot of people are going to learn a lot of things when this kind of stuff goes down. And the CCP will learn, as every other communist nation learns, that no matter how much you think you've won, you never, ever are going to be liberty. Ever. No matter how dark the days get for this great republic, no matter how much it seems like it's all over, it's never over. It's never. All they have, ever since 2020 now, they've lost the cloak of darkness. And that's a big deal. It's a big deal. That cloak of darkness is the reason they were able, it's easy to go to war against somebody when they don't know you're at war, right? If they don't know they're at war, it's easy to have some wins. But if you can't, there's no way they maintain it once we realize what's been going on. And that is slowly happening, slower than I would like, but it's happening. It's happening, and the country is waking up. And once we all realize that there are no Democrats and Republicans right now, it's just Americans and Marxists. That's it. Those are the two teams. And I think more and more Democrats, RFK is one of them, a prominent one, obviously, but more and more on the voting base are starting to realize that there is no right and left. There's Americans, there's Team America, and there's Team Marxist, Team CCP. And when you classify it that way, it's very difficult to get on Team CCP. As long as you continue with the illusion of there being, of John F. Kennedy, and Democrats, as long as you keep that illusion going, they're going to keep sleepwalking. But that's an illusion. It's a complete illusion. And so, in the spirit of Lady Myrn and the spirit of Constitution Month, I am going to do a quick explainer for Article 5. So for those of you who may not know, and maybe you jumped on the channel because you were interested in some of the stuff I did about WEF and CCP and, or even this topic today, Article 5 is the bedrock of this channel. And I want to make sure that those who have been following, especially now, now we hit that 1,000 mark on Twitter. I feel like, I don't think there's going to be a ton of viewership with 1,000 followers, but I think that, as it grows, I want these followers to understand early what this channel is about, okay? And really, it's about Article 5. And what Article 5 is, all right, is what really needs to be done. You cannot elect your way out of tyranny. Okay, Article 5 is the most powerful weapon that the people of the United States have in our tool belt, and too many people don't know about it. So it's the section of the Constitution, of the U.S. Constitution, that explains how to amend the Constitution. And as many of you civics-minded individuals may know, the classic way that the Constitution has been amended, right, at least 17 of the 27 times. Because to me, and I'll get into the story in a minute, the Bill of Rights really was it was built under the threat of convention, which is convention to me. But all the amendments that exist today technically fall under the traditional way, which is that the House of Representatives and the Senate will each vote on proposed language for an amendment. Once they pass it with 2/3 majorities, they can then send it over to the states for ratification, who then each state reviews it individually. If 3/4 of the states, which is 38 states, agree that proposed language is suitable for the Constitution, then they will ratify it. And once ratified, it then becomes a part of the Constitution, and anyone elected after that needs to abide by it. The other way, which people know less of, is that, what's this? Oh. So the other way, which people know less of, is the second clause of Article 5. Heavily pushed by George Mason and really by the Anti-Federalists in general, who are also to be credited for the Bill of Rights, by the way. All right. But even though we all love our Federalists, the fact is the Anti-Federalists gave us some gems. And what it says, because Mason was concerned that, well, wait a minute. If Congress is proposing amendments, what if the government gets out of control? Another testament to the fear that the founders had when they created this child. When they created this federal government. All right. Let's not forget, the states are the parents, right? And they were deathly afraid of this getting out of control. And Mason brought up, well, why would they ever propose anything that's going to take away their power if they become tyrannical? And he was right. And they agreed, and with no debate, right? I think they put into Madison's notes non com, which is Latin for, no debate. It was just universally accepted as common sense and put in that the states have a method on their own for the sake, and people go, oh, it doesn't mean that it's not for the sake of that, for the sake of restricting the federal government's power. If it were for any other reason, it would be redundant. The entire purpose of it is to restrict the power of the federal government. And so that is something that they put in that is completely not taught in school. All right. Teachers don't know it. I've asked. They have no idea what Article 5 is. Supreme Court Justice didn't know it. Right? If you were blessed enough to see that little gem where they were asking her questions, I believe it was Kennedy asking her the questions, and he asked her, "Do you know what Article 5 of the Constitution is?" She was like, I'm afraid I forgot that." Like, this is something, right, that we need to understand because it's in stone. It's in the Constitution now. And the way it works, for those that are saying, well, how does this wonderful thing work? The way it works is that the states now, instead of Congress coming to a 2/3 majority in each house, 2/3 of the states must agree on proposed language for calling a convention. Not the proposed language of the actual amendments, but the topics. So right now, there are 19 states, you may not be aware, that have already passed resolutions. Okay? They've already passed resolutions, and I have the topics right here. All right? So they've already passed resolutions on to call for a convention on the topics of term limits, fiscal restraints, and government overreach of power. Okay? And that being said, all right, now you say, well, George, we need the border fixed and we need, I understand that. And we could call future conventions. It's the idea here, okay, is that this started 10 years ago. All right. This is not an easy process right now. It's not an easy process anyway, but it's not an easy process right now because there are fearmongers out there, most of whom are aligning with Marxists, including conservative organizations like John Birch Society, who they themselves spent the first portion of their existence trying to fight for a convention, which they call the Liberty Amendments. But the fact of the matter is these organizations are out there scaring state legislatures out of their power. And state legislatures, by the way, are the only ones. They carry more power than any other entity. When they join, they form like Voltron. There's no more powerful entity in this country. None. They can overturn the Supreme Court when they come together, because that's what an amendment is. Right? If the courts have ruled against something and the states say we want it and you're wrong, they can do this and pass an amendment to make it so. They did that when the progressives imposed income tax on you. That's where the 16th Amendment came from, because the courts kept ruling it unconstitutional because it was. But the states now, when 2/3 agree, if you read the Constitution, Congress shall call a convention, and then they're done. Then they have no more say in anything in the process. That's it. It is completely up to you and your local legislators. Now, once they call the convention, the states will then select delegates or commissioners. So this could be anybody. This could be it. These are just people, you want people in there who are thoughtful and educated on these topics, right? Because they're going to go in on behalf of your state and vote on behalf of your state. Now, you can pick as many as you want or as little as you want. Some states can have 12 delegates, some can have 1. But that's who's conferring when they propose an amendment or they propose some language in that convention. It's a simple majority, 1 vote per state. Once that language gets done, we're good. 26 votes, it's done. It's going back to the states. All right? So they're going to sit there, mull over it. It'll probably take them 6 months or a year to go over the language on all 3 different topics because there's so much that can be done. And they're not going to want to put stuff in that's never going to get ratified. They want to try and get things that will get ratified, which means, only 13 chambers of the 99 across the states can cause this thing can cause it to not be ratified. Not an easy challenge to overcome. There needs to be agreement across the board on these topics. And as you can see, they all need to be restrictive. There's no topic that can come out adding power to the federal government. That's just not an option. But once they do that, they give it back to the states. The states, still now, we've gotten past that hurdle. Now the states have got to ratify it, and you need 38 of them to do so. Now, the overwhelming majority of Americans agree on these 3 topics. That's why they were chosen. But fiscal restraints, like we can impose a balanced budget amendment on Congress. We can impose term limits on Congress. We can impose restrictions on government overreach, namely all these regulatory agencies who are writing legislation in the name of regulation without having any accountability to the people at all. Something that the courts have let them get away with for the longest time. But the Supreme Court's not the final word. We are. If we want existential change, if we want true change in this country on the issues that are going to tank it, then we need to do it because the government is too structurally broken to do it on its own. Now, Trump has already talked about eliminating the income tax. That can be done right now under this process. And fiscal restraints topic will cover that. The income tax has forever been unconstitutional until they got that bastardized amendment passed. This is how you make change. This is how we do it. Our nation, our republic, was the reason we are not a democracy. Our republic was designed not to serve the majority, to serve the minority, to protect the minority, I should say. And the entire operation was designed to be run not from the president and Congress, from your local legislator, from the man or woman that's in your district. That's who you're supposed to go to, not to the president. That's how it's supposed to work. And we need to get back to that. And hopefully we do. But as always, jump on at any time on any one of these live events. I should be consistently on Thursdays. I know I wasn't on last week, but I was flying out that day to West Virginia, and I had not mentioned it the week before because I didn't really know. So my apologies for that. But Thursdays is my staple day. That's the day I try to get on, 5:30 p.m. Pacific time, as I do broadcast from the People's Republic of California. So 8:30 to all of my East Coast folk. Thank you to everybody who commented. I very much appreciate you. I will say, on occasion, I do come on occasion on Sundays if I can. So I'll jump on Sunday afternoons. A little tougher now because of football, so we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I didn't walk away from football. I still watch it. I'm not letting the Marxists take everything from me. They want to suck all the joy out of your life, and and I don't want to let that happen. Thank you, Mern. I got an approval on my explanation from District Captain Mern over at over at Convention Estates. So I appreciate that. And I really do need to start getting back to that point, because even though I could add Trump's name in and get more views and Trumpity Trump, this, and this, and everybody wants to hear about Trump, and I get it, but like, I'm not really about that unless it's relevant, right? Like the assassination attempt, you can't not talk about that, right? But in the end, I just want people to know, especially new followers, that Article 5 is what this channel is about. So on that note, I will see you all next week, or hopefully on Sunday, especially if something big happens. But until then, thank you everyone for getting me getting me past that 1,000 point on X. Anybody on Facebook, Rumble, or YouTube that are watching this right now, please head over there and give me some love. It's at Patriot Think Tank, or you could just type in the Patriot Think Tank. It comes up. But yeah, I appreciate you guys, and I'll see you.